Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television, GPTV. I'm Brett. In my hands is Wake, the Hidden History of Women-Led Slave Revolts. It's written by Rebecca Hall, Dr. Rebecca Hall, illustrated by Hugo Martínez, lettered by Sarula Bao. It's a really interesting graphic novel. It's kind of like, it's a graphic memoir, also kind of graphic history at the same time. It's just a really interesting blend, and it is about Hall's research into slave revolts, particularly ones led by women. And what's interesting is the graphic novel kind of blends between two things. Is one, it's Dr. Hall's search for this history, and then two, kind of like imagining what that history is. And what's interesting is that the graphic novel does a really good job of illustrating. Choice of words, illustrating, dialing home the impact of this history to today. It's actually a really great statement, I think, at the end. I want to quote this because I really, really like this. It goes, this is ancestry and progress, and it is our superpower. This is really just, one, talking about these amazing revolts. This fight for freedom, this fight for justice, and this defiance against, sure death. And then also this fight by Dr. Hall to go through this history, to find the truth, to attempt to uncover the past. And I think it's really interesting of what roadblocks she falls into, what issues are brought up, who kind of throws roadblocks in her way. I think it's really, really interesting. There's so much detail in it. I mean, it's a very educational read in multiple ways. One, just the history that it uncovers, but two, the issues just trying to research this. Obviously this is having to go into archives from the 1700s, and the difficulty of that. And then there's just so many institutions who almost make it their job to try to whitewash this history, to try to pave over this history and pretend like it doesn't exist. The amount of people who push back when all she wants to do is look at records, I think is kind of amazing, and it's something I would never think about. You think it would just be easy to maybe get some of these records, and some of them just are no, and some of it's for good reasons. Like there's Lloyd's of London is one example. They put up a lot of fight and denies the records, and the reasoning is that they'd potentially be open to litigation and lawsuits. So it's understandable, but at the same time, we have to accept and own up to our history. I think what's also interesting is there's a lot of small details and facts thrown out by Hall throughout the graphic novel. I mean, there's a really interesting thing about women being left on the quarterdeck and all these revolts happening, and it was because the women left on the quarterdeck were the ones causing the revolts, and the sailors just were never picking up on this was the reason this was happening. I think it's just really something I had no idea. I never really thought about it. So it's super educational. It's really, really interesting. Fascinating read. And it ties in so well things like, Tulsa Massacre and all this history that we're not taught. And I hate to say that this is the rich history, but this to me is the interesting stuff. These are, true stories, and it's not just facts, but these are people, and they're fighting, and attempt for justice and freedom, and this is the interesting stuff to me. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I wish there was more of this. I'd love to see more history of this. I'd love to see more examination of this, and I mean, it's really, really, really good. The art, I think, is solid. It's an interesting style, and I grew into it as the graphic novel went on. I'll admit, at first I'm kind of it's just not my style, but as it kind of went on, there's some really interesting perspectives that I really dug. Let's see if I can find this. I love this page. I think it's just such a cool page, and the perspective and the way it's laid out and what it does. I think it's just really, really neat. The lettering is probably the only thing I'd knock. I found it a little hard to read at times. The font chosen, and there's a lot there. I think the font chosen is probably maybe my issue, but I'm not a lettering expert, so I don't know if there'd be a better choice out there. We also get some sources, which is really helpful because there's a lot to go and check out. It's just a fascinating read. I mean, it feels like half the graphic novel is Hall's journey to try to tell these stories, and then the rest is split up between the stories themselves. And that way, it's really fascinating. It's seriously more graphic memoir than anything else, and for that, I think it's fascinating. This is one that it's a hard read just because the subject's difficult and there's some horrible stuff in there. But it's well worth it, and it's definitely something that I think people will do themselves some good, reading it and learning and remembering and owning up to our history. This is out now. I highly recommend. If you are into history, go for it. If you're into early American history, definitely go for it. There's stuff in here I had not even stuff. Pretty much all of it, I had no idea. The specifics and the details, all that, just over my head. I knew general of these things, we had slaves, but, and, how brutal it was and how horrible it was and all that. I know all that, but this, really goes into some of the laws of the time and how some were written about and, the details of, them being tracked on boats, so if they died, the insurance can pay out and stuff like that. There's just a level of detail that I had no idea. So I very, very educated about this. This is an amazing read, an amazing graphic novel. Props to everyone involved. This is I think a great example of the power of graphic novels and the graphic comic medium. Go get this, as I said, out now. You should be able to get it at comic shops. We got a link beneath this video. Put in your zip code, tell the shops near you. No shop, no problem. We have some affiliate links. There are affiliate links, so we get a small percentage by doing that. You help support our site, so thank you. Speaking of support, Simon Schuster hooked us up with a review copy. We appreciate that. And thank you for watching. Now, if you're into graphic novels, if you're into comics in general, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.